Rio Paulo has expanded pretty rapidly and it is in desperate need of some sort of highway infrastructure. The highway that we're going to put in today is based on a real life one and it's really cool. It's crazy. It goes through some amazingly steep terrain and that highway is going to give us the connection we need to put all of the access in for the Christ Redeemer statue as well. The best part about doing that in today's episode is it's got this really cool cogwheel railway that transports passengers up and down the mountainside up to the statue, which is really cool, and we're going to build that today as well. So that's the bulk of what we're going to build, but chuck in a nice gated community and the biggest favela patch I've built in the city so far, and we have episode 7. Welcome back to Rio Paulo, guys. Well, it happened. My save broke. It didn't just break, it smashed into pieces. I was having my game crash literally every few minutes. I tried reverting back to old saves, I got rid of the newest mods that I had, I tried everything, but I just couldn't get it to work. In the end, what I did was I started a new mods playlist and just added back in every major mod one at a time, and this was painstakingly slow, and that's why I'm a little bit late with this episode. It's also why my cliff texture has reverted back to the default one. I haven't added that mod back in yet. I'm still a little bit scared with certain mods, but by the end of the episode I've added that one back in, and that's one of the good things to have come out of this is I've actually added in a couple of mods that I didn't have, and one of them is the recolor mod, and this is an absolute game changer. You guys have got to see this, you'll see it later on. It is incredible. So the first thing we're going to do in today's episode is get all of those valleys in and get this highway in. I was a bit nervous about doing this because I have not been good with tunnels in Citiesskylines 2, but this worked out pretty good. It needed a little bit of jiggling around, but this highway is actually going to work within game really well as well. It's going to go right over to the far beach, and at the moment citizens have to go right through the middle of downtown, and it's a slow trip and it's causing a lot of traffic. So the other thing we're going to do while we're putting the highway in is we're going to put lots of trees in. I've chosen the oak tree here because it has a really good coverage. It's got a good wide canopy, and I just love how the performance isn't affected anywhere near as much as Citiesskylines 1 when we add trees. If you're using Anarchy, you can really make it look thick. Once I've got a few trees around the place, I'm going to carry on in the second valley with that highway. I'd like the roading to come through the tunnel at a really nice level or slightly sloped angle if I could. And I've found the best way to achieve that is to do a little bit of terraforming and get all those slopes in before you put the roads in. For instance, I can use the level tool in each one of the valleys for the entry point to the tunnel and make sure it's nice and level. Once I'm happy with each tunnel entrance, I want to put more trees around it, make it nice and thick. Then I want to carry on putting my highway right down and connecting it into our existing roadway over in our second beach. I haven't named this area yet, I probably should. But where the highway connects to the roadway here, I'll make it into a little roundabout eventually. And like I mentioned, this works really well within game, and it's just super cool. I mean, I picture myself driving along this highway going into these big tunnels and then popping out for probably just a handful of seconds and then back into another tunnel. I can't wait to see some cars going up and down here, and boy, do we get some cars. This highway is very popular. So let's finish off with the terraforming on the second valley. I want to change some of the road to a elevated one and then lower the terrain down underneath it to give enough headway for a road to go through. The idea with the roads in the valley is to have like a main arterial road going up the middle and then having a whole lot of different roads snaking off of that. I'm really excited to put this tram line up the mountainside, but to do it in game we've got to do a couple of little crafty things. It's going to be a bit of a point-to-point tram, but in order for me to get one from the depot onto the line, I need to build a track off the existing infrastructure. I'd prefer not to be able to see this winding up the hill, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it tunneling all the way up to where I want the train station or the tram line to start from, i.e. at the base of the mountain, and then I'm going to clear a section of trees up where approximately I want the line to go. Then we can use the terraform tool to put that in and change the surrounding mountains a little bit. In real life there's a little bit of a valley over the back here, and I'd like to sort of put that in because where this tram line ends up the mountain there's a little wee village and it's sort of on the edge of that cliff. The easiest way to terraform where I'm going to put the line in is to use the slope tool. I'm just going to right click up the mountain where I want our little village or what level I want it at, and then left click right down the bottom and then just draw in between. I am trying to follow the contours of the mountain as I do this, and then I can sort of use the feather tool to soften it off a little bit. In real life this is a cogwheel railway, and basically that's a tram that goes up very steep terrain, and it needs to because this is still really steep even after all of our terraforming. Now I can continue our line on from our tunnel all the way up to where we want the village, and I'm going to do something very sneaky with the tunnel later on. But for now, let's get this line right the way up, and then I want to do some terraforming up where we're going to put the little village. I want to make a little flat spot so, we can do a little bit of detailing without worrying too much about the slope. I want the tram stop in particular to be really detailed. I need to do a little bit more terraforming around the railway where it's a little bit ugly, and the highway. Then we can reinstate all of the trees nice and close to the railway so that you can barely see it, and then we can carry on with the next part. So like I mentioned, this is like an end of line or point to point style line. It's just going to go from this lower point up to the top point and back again. I need to put a road in nice and close to the railway here so that the citizens getting on and off the stop can get to the roadway and leave the tram stop properly. And then I'll do exactly the same thing up the top. Now, I really want the statue to function within game. I want people to go up and visit it. In order for me to make that work, I need to run a road up there. It's not ideal. This isn't here in real life. You've got to trek this on foot, but I've got to have that road connection in real life to have this function properly. I'm going to run a pedestrian path up next to it anyway, just in case some people are feeling adventurous and they want to walk up here, which I'm really forcing them to do using an alleyway as well. We'll see what happens later on. So for the next couple of minutes, we're going to focus on this little wee village up here. I want a mixture of what looks like really old buildings up here that have been repurposed and some more touristic, sort of busy areas. I would also like to have one really important looking building up here. I'll let you guys guess what this might be up here for, but I just really love this little wee villa here within game, so I'm going to put this up here and try and make this work. So while you watch me put these buildings in, I want to talk about one of the mods that I've got now that I didn't have in the last episode, and that's Recolor. Recolor lets me sort of split each building into 3 different color palettes. One's the roof, one's the facade, and the other's the trims, so you can imagine how much of a game changer that is. All of these buildings you're looking at eventually will get the same sort of terracotta color roof, and most of the facades are changed to that white color, and the difference is huge. So at this point I've only got a handful more buildings to put in up here, and then I want to really put some detail in. I ummed and ahed for a long time about putting much detail up and around the statue, but I've decided just to keep it pretty simple. In real life there's a lot of like stairways and different stone walls, like retaining walls all over the place and things like that, and I could do that here, but I think I'm just overcomplicating it. I still want citizens to use this within game, and keeping it simple is just going to make sure that that happens. So keeping it simple to me is just making sure it's got a connection to a roadway and making sure that the pedestrians can get up here okay. I'm going to try and sneakily hide the end of the road a little bit underneath the surface that comes with the statue, and then I want to bring all of those oak trees right in, nice and close to the statue, nice and close to the road, and finish this area off. What a cool, charming and unique little wee village. It would almost be worth the ride up here just to visit the village alone. And the road up to the Christ Redeemer statue doesn't even look that bad. I think the trees hide it. You have to get it on the right angle to even see it. I know one day I'll have the real statue within game, but for now we've got to do with this bronze statue. But could you picture for a second what the real statue would look like up here if we had it within game? I mean, once we start getting assets in this game, man, look out. In real life, we see a really nice mix of buildings in this area. Most of the larger ones are on the arterial road itself, and the little wee alleyways that snake off it, they generally have those little wee terracotta roofed houses on them. It's a bit of a painstaking process putting all of these down by hand, but I wouldn't dream of zoning. You just have nowhere near the control that you have doing it this way. Plop the growables is a must here, as well as anarchy and move it. There's no particular order or any plan I'm following while placing these buildings down. I'm just doing my best to make sure that they look like they're being scattered organically. There won't be many clusters of them at all, and where there is, it'll be around a significant built up area, like for instance the bottom of our tramway going up the mountainside. I picture that as being built up a little wee bit just because of how many tourists might be going through the area, and at this point obviously I don't have that recolor mod, so I'm trying to choose buildings here that have a terracotta roof by default. Not all of them, however. I'd like some of them just to be a normal flat roof, you know, with air conditioning and pipes and stuff on the roof, because you do see these as well. And I'd also like to make a few contrasty areas, so I'd like to have areas that have like significant looking buildings or historic looking buildings right next to really old rough industry that's just been abandoned and not looked after, and it's sort of tells a tale of how some buildings are preserved and kept, and others, even if they are beautiful, are just left to die and rot and be gone. And in some cases here, these buildings are right next to each other. I really love how I wouldn't expect to see that in this part of the city, but you know, there it is. Next, we're going to do a little highway connection here onto our arterial road. Don't worry about the red trees. I'm going to speed the game up very shortly. But I'm going to use our little trick to terraform the terrain here where I want these on and off ramps so that they're nice and smooth and easy to put in. Okay, so we've got our roading connection in. Let's go back to our tram stop and finish it off. So what I'd like to try is, I'd like to try and put some buildings over the tunnel so we can't see it. I shouldn't have to worry about any trams clipping through the buildings because the tram that's running on the line, there's only one of them, it's already on the line and it's not needing to go back through this building or through this tunnel at all. As you can see, the tram is already on the line and running, so I'm going to pause the game where it's at the stop and detail around that. I really think this should be a little bit of a built up area, so we're going to squeeze in a few biggish buildings, well, at least for this area, and I'd like to try and get them as close to the tram stop as I could, so really try and jam them in. There's a part here that's going to go underneath our highway bridge, and I'm going to turn this into a bit of a nothing sort of a space. It's dirty, it's just got big billboards on it, maybe whoever owns it's just getting paid money for advertising, and it's just going to generally be a really dirty area. I mean, after all, we all love a bit of grunginess, don't we? So this is what we've got so far, and I think this looks pretty good. There's a little bit more we're going to add yet, but we've got a nice mix of buildings here. The highway looks really cool and super interesting just poking through there. And off camera I've added this massive favela area. Now I've showed you guys heaps me putting these buildings in, hence why I've put them in off camera. But what I haven't showed too much of is the detailing that I do around them. So we're going to do that now. So just to push that contrast agenda a little bit further, right at the bottom where I've got the favelas, I've got a gated community. It's got its own tennis courts. We're going to put a really nice looking park here on this awkward bit of land. The reason I've put this here is because there's actually a really nice view from this area back down the valley and towards the stadium. So before we put those favelas in, let's get this area here done. In terms of those favelas, I'm doing a couple of little things differently with the props. I'm now using window shutters on the front of them to look like windows or doors in some cases. I'm also adding like TV aerials and satellites to the roofs of them. And some of them now are going to have like nice patio or balcony areas with table and chairs on them. Some of the other props you'll see me use are the ones you've seen me use in the past, and that's like clothes hanging up, tents and tarpaulins all over the place, lots of dirt and decals and cracks. And I have to say, when this area is finished, it just looks fantastic sitting underneath that bronze statue that we put in earlier as the Christ Redeemer. I've tried to put these favelas in an area where they're sort of creeping up a little valley in the hillside, and yeah, I think it comes out looking great. Well, I got the mod map texture replacer back, and I even went and downloaded my own custom texture, and I think it looks great. I'm pleased that I've managed to keep my save and get most of my mods back now, and in this episode we have added some really vital things, like the highway for instance. The city also has its newest attraction, the Christ Redeemer, and probably its greatest attraction, and that's all running in game 2, which is great. There is, however, one more thing we need to do. We need to finish off all of the buildings in this valley going up further and up higher than the highway. I'm absolutely loving our new cliff texture that I've made, and I'm going to make sure we've got a little bit of that showing. We're also going to have more favelas up here, and the buildings are basically just going to dribble out into little wee ones. This will finish off this entire valley, and this has added so much to the city. It looks really organic. It looks super interesting with that highway just poking through. We've got the continuation of the favelas up here in the really mountainous areas, which ties it back into our city really well. Working on this city is just a blast. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I'm very thankful that you're watching. I have a bunch of new viewers at the moment, which is really awesome. If you guys could consider subscribing, I'd be very, very grateful. Even a good old thumbs up on the video does me wonders. I can promise you that you won't have to wait as long for the next episode because I'm already well into it. I really hope to see you guys there. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and I will see you later on. Catch you later.